just as Britain has to make a decision about its changing role in the world, so I think we should be prepared to adopt a reforming analysis about the way in which we govern ourselves within the United Kingdom. I believe that that analysis leads us to the conclusion that far too many decisions are taken within the Whitehall-Westminster complex. Decisions are reduced to pieces of paper and they go through the administrative machine. There is an apparent efficiency, but there is a disregard of many of the opinions that are held out with the received wisdom and knowledge of the Westminster Whitehall complex. Of course, there has been one exception to the centralising tradition. In one respect, we have been moving in an opposite direction, and that is in the case of Scotland and in Wales. Since in 1885, there has been a territorial minister for Scotland, a secretary for Scotland then becoming a Secretary of State in 1926. And following in the same pattern, we've had a Secretary of State for Wales in 1964. And we have large amounts of the domestic affairs of Scotland and Wales are administered from Edinburgh and from Cardiff. Now, I believe that administrative devolution, because that's what it is, has been a great success. And I pray and aid the evidence that nearly every British government, of whatever political complexion, has handed more powers to the Secretaries of State for Scotland and Wales. And I don't believe there are many people in Scotland or Wales who would argue that they should lose their Secretaries of State. Although the Conservatives opposed the setting up of the Secretary of State for Wales in 1964, I notice he is used as one of the major arguments against devolution now. So the issue before the people of Scotland and Wales in the referendum which is before them is whether they have some self-confidence in their own political maturity, to be able to have diverse voices within the United Kingdom without imagining that it must lead to disunity. Why can't it lead to an agreed unity? Why can't there be the same political maturity exercised in the assemblies as has been exercised over our political history? Now, I have faith not only in the future of Scotland and Wales and of Britain, but in the political maturity, wisdom and skill of the people of all parts of the United Kingdom. And I believe that the passage, the assent which they are called upon to give to these acts will be a very important and wise step forward in the continuous development of the British Constitution. And I say to them particularly that they must not listen to all the people who find objections at every corner, the people who have no faith in their power to exercise power maturely and carefully. I say to them it's always easy to find fears, to find grudges, to find ways in which proposals can be objected to. But what we are proposing is a constructive way forward that will give an extension of democracy, and I believe ultimately will found the United Kingdom on a much more secure basis. So I hope they will be supported.
The defect of these particular proposals is that they do threaten the unity of the United Kingdom without actually giving compensating advantages to the people of Scotland and Wales. And it is no accident that the most vociferous and energetic campaigners in favour of the proposals do not do so for the reasons given by the Secretary of State. They do so for nationalist reasons. The most energetic campaigners are the Scottish and Welsh nationalists who openly welcome these proposals as being the first step on the road towards separation, independence, and the breakup of the United Kingdom. And they are right, because the particular path that these proposals follow does lead in that direction. It is not a logical and well-thought-out governmental scheme, but an ill-thought-out and confused response to particular political pressures operating at a time. And it is this element of confusion and conflict which is at the root of these proposals, which is so very dangerous indeed. What these proposals are at best a dead end, a blind alley, and at worst a gangplank leading to the balkanization of Britain. I beg leave to oppose.
In asking for a yes vote from the Scots, I'm asking the Scots to demonstrate their self-respect I'm asking the Scots to build on that self-respect, which can be a very new thing for many Scots, unfortunately. I'm asking them to build self-confidence on that self-respect, because without a yes vote on Thursday, we will become the hangers-on of the United Kingdom. We will become the nation that didn't have the courage of its convictions. We will become the nation of peculiar people who are trotted out to tart up some sort of British ceremony like trooping guards or something at all like this. We will no longer be able to think of ourselves as a nation. We will no longer be able to claim the responsibility for our own development, for our own relationships with other nations. We will no longer be able to hold our heads high. I'm asking the Scots to vote yes, because there is nothing else that we can do on Thursday. We know, obviously, that from the vote yes, we'll get a Scottish Assembly. We know, because on this side of the House we're constructive, and so therefore we have looked at the Acts. We have looked to see in which way a first constitutional step forward can actually be improved, in what way it might well prove slightly embarrassing to some of the existing practices in Westminster. And we are quite convinced that not only can we use the given powers in the Act as it is, but we can also work constructively towards a development of the Scottish Assembly in relationship with Westminster. We are quite convinced that we can improve the scrutiny of Scottish education policy, which received last year in the House of Commons, I think, 49 minutes. £600 million was spent in Scottish education last year, and yet that was all the time that was allocated to it. We can surely improve on this if we have an Assembly in Scotland which is sensitive to the needs of Scottish people. We have lacked self-confidence because we have not challenged ourselves, we have not stretched ourselves. We have continuously waited for something to happen and for Westminster to do something to us. This has been the language which has characterised the No campaign in Scotland. This is the language of Lady Polwarth wrote to the Scotsman, saying that I would prefer that we in Scotland should continue to have our cake and to eat it by allowing the English to distribute largesse to us from the Treasury coffers than to start the undignified process of squabbling about it amongst ourselves. That is the language of the No campaign. That is the language of the parasite. That is the language that will forever consign Scotland to mediocrity. It will forever consign the whole United Kingdom to mediocrity if we are not prepared to recognise that we must admit that there is now a wide divergence in the standards of living, in the potential economic development, in the potential industrial development, in the different social development in the United Kingdom. And we must evolve parliamentary institutions to meet these new needs. This Scottish Assembly Act is the first of these. The Scots must vote yes. I believe the Scots will vote yes, because we also want to show what we can put into the United Kingdom. We are not merely content to accept largesse. I urge this House, help us in the road forward. Help the Scots towards self-respect, self-responsibility, and a new and trustworthy relationship with other parts of the United Kingdom. Support the motion.
The main reason for voting no is that what is offered to us is a scheme which won't work, which can't last, and which will bring non-stop conflict and lead to the break-up of Britain. Even the bill's supporters accept it. We've got Joe Grimmond who said, "I'm voting for it because it's so awful, it'll have to be changed." that I'm told is what is going for the middle ground. Now, we had Jim Sillars in the debate themselves said it's a catapult to independence. And then we have the SNP themselves who support this as a means of going to independence. Now, quite frankly, it simply isn't enough to say it won't lead to independence because the people of Scotland don't want it. They don't want it now, but it's absolutely not a case for putting forward a constitutional structure which has got built-in conflict all the way. Quite frankly, Mr. President, if we implement this act, it'll mean the average family will pay more for government, they'll be over-governed with 5 tiers of government, there'll be a threat to employment through constitutional instability, there'll be a danger of less cash for Scotland, and we get 1/3 more at the present time for devolved subjects, we'll have a less powerful voice in Westminster. Quite frankly, Mr. President, when our country is in a mess, there's constantly searching for new ideas, new magic solutions. I believe, Mr. President, the Scotland Act is a ghastly constitutional mess which will do no good to Scotland and which will undermine the unity of Britain, and that's why those who seek to break up Britain are so much in favour of it. I suggest that I am, quite frankly, in the position, as I believe the majority of Scots should be, that if they want to keep Britain united and ensure that Britain-Scotland doesn't become the most over-governed country in the world, we should vote no tomorrow.
Mr. President, in essence, this debate is about those who believe in centralisation and those who believe in a decentralist system of government. From none of the opposition tonight have we had a single conception that there must be something wrong with the centralised system at Westminster that has manifestly failed not only Scotland and Wales, but the peripheral areas of England as well. Now, I want to answer one of the central charges that have been made by the Scotland Says No campaign. And incidentally, we've coined a new phrase up north, that there are lies, damned lies, statistics, and Scotland Says No arguments. They have argued that devolution equals separation. And in this, they are indeed intellectually and politically dishonest, because they have deliberately overlooked not only the British dimension in our lives, but the European dimension which has been there since we joined the European community. And even if the Scottish Assembly expands its powers, status and influence, so long as it remains part of the enlarged customs union of the common market, by definition, it can never be separatist. There is in the history of the United Kingdom itself, in this century, proof of what I've been arguing, that those who refuse to yield on the Irish Home Rule Bill are the people who were responsible for that part of the United Kingdom peeling off in 1916 and 22. Final point is this, Mr. Chairman. One of the basic reasons that I have, and I know my time's up, I'll take a few minutes or a few seconds more, for arguing for a yes vote in this referendum, is that inherent in devolution is the assumption of responsibility for the first time in 270 years for the Scottish people. The opportunity to rid ourselves of the great big chip on our shoulder, the great big streak of Anglophobia that runs throughout Scottish society. After devolution, we have no alibis. The buck stops at Edinburgh for a whole range of Scottish affairs, and that will be an enormous benefit to Scotland and make for a healthier relationship between the Scots and the English.